The glass doors of Calloway Luxury Motors slid open with a whisper, allowing a man in a worn-out leather jacket and faded jeans to step inside. The scent of polished leather and fresh espresso filled the air, the soft hum of classical music playing in the background. Mark Calloway, the dealership's owner, stood behind his sleek black desk, sipping his imported Italian coffee. His sharp, calculating gaze flicked toward the new arrival, immediately judging. The man walked slowly, his hands tucked into his pockets as he admired the rows of gleaming luxury cars under the bright showroom lights. Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Bentleys, all pristine, all waiting for the right kind of buyer. Mark arched an eyebrow. The guy didn't look like a buyer. He had no entourage, no flashy watch, no designer suit. He carried himself too casually, too comfortably, as if he belonged here, which he didn't. Mark sighed and motioned for his top salesman, Ethan, to handle it. Ethan, a slick, well-groomed man in a tailored navy suit, strode over, flashing a forced smile. "Can I help you, sir?" The man, Keanu Reeves, nodded. "Yeah, I was interested in that one." He gestured toward a sleek black Aston Martin Valkyrie, its custom carbon fiber body gleaming under the showroom lights. Ethan barely contained a smirk. That car was over $3 million. And this guy? He looked like someone who rode the subway. "Ah," Ethan said, glancing at Mark, who was already shaking his head. "That's a very exclusive model. We don't typically sell to just anyone. It requires a certain clientele." Keanu tilted his head slightly. "I see," he said, his tone calm. "And what kind of clientele is that?" Mark finally stepped forward, setting down his coffee with a loud clink. "Let's be honest here," he said, crossing his arms. "This isn't the kind of place where people just walk in and buy a car like that." Keanu studied him for a moment, his expression unreadable. "I'm willing to pay today, full price." A beat of silence, then Mark let out a sharp laugh. "Look," he said, voice dripping with condescension. "We cater to a very elite group of clients, celebrities, CEOs, real estate moguls, serious buyers. This isn't a place for window shoppers." Ethan chuckled under his breath. A few other employees nearby smirked. Keanu remained unfazed. His eyes drifted back to the car. "Nice machine," he murmured. "Drives like a dream, I bet." Mark rolled his eyes. "Wouldn't know, would you?" The staff laughed. Keanu simply nodded, completely unaffected. "Well," he said, stepping back toward the exit, "thanks for your time." And just like that, he turned and walked out. No argument, no pleading, no insisting on who he was, nothing. Mark shook his head, chuckling. "Unbelievable." Ethan smirked. "I'll bet he's telling his buddies he almost bought a $3 million car right now." The laughter echoed through the showroom. None of them realized what had just happened. None of them had any idea who they had just turned away. But by the next morning they would. Jake stood frozen behind the dealership's reception desk, gripping the edge of the counter as he watched the scene unfold. He had been working at Calloway Luxury Motors for only a few months, just long enough to know how things worked here. Mark Calloway ran the dealership like a private club, hand-picking which customers were worthy of their business. But tonight felt different. Jake's gut twisted as he watched Keanu Reeves walk out of the showroom, his departure followed by smug laughter from Mark and the senior staff. Jake recognized him immediately. At first he thought he was mistaken. After all, Keanu was an A-list celebrity, a Hollywood legend. What would he be doing in their dealership, dressed like an ordinary guy? But the more Jake watched, the more certain he became. He had seen enough interviews and behind-the-scenes stories about Keanu to know one thing. He wasn't like other celebrities. He wasn't the type to flaunt his wealth. He didn't walk around with bodyguards or demand special treatment. He was just Keanu. And Mark had just laughed in his face. That night, long after the showroom had closed, Jake sat in his tiny apartment, his laptop screen glowing in the dark. His fingers moved quickly over the keyboard as he pulled up article after article. Keanu Reeves' net worth, over $380 million. Hollywood's most humble star, gives millions to charity. Keanu Reeves, spotted taking the subway like an ordinary person. Keanu secretly donates most of his earnings to help others. Jake ran a hand through his hair. Mark had refused to sell a car to one of the richest and most respected celebrities on the planet. And worse, they had mocked him while doing it. Jake clicked on a few more links, his stomach twisting with dread. The more he read, the more he realized just how badly they had messed up. Keanu wasn't just rich. He was loved by the public. People respected him for his humility, his kindness, his generosity. He wasn't some flashy millionaire looking to flex his wealth. If he had come to buy a car, it was because he genuinely wanted it and they had shut him down. Jake's fingers hovered over his phone. Should he text Mark? Should he warn him? No. He already knew how that conversation would go. Mark would laugh it off, dismissing Jake's concerns as paranoia. He'd say something like, if he wanted the car so badly, he should have dressed like he could afford it. Jake sighed, shaking his head. He had a bad feeling about this. Jake arrived early at the dealership, hoping to get ahead of whatever storm was about to hit. But the moment he stepped inside, he felt the tension in the air. Mark was standing near his office, his phone glued to his ear, his face red with frustration. Ethan and the other salesmen huddled together, muttering under their breath. Something was wrong. Jake hurried to his desk, unlocked his computer, and immediately opened the news. His stomach dropped. The headlines were everywhere. Luxury car dealership refuses to sell to Keanu Reeves. Instantly regrets it. Keanu Reeves. Humiliated at exclusive dealership. Internet erupts in outrage. Would you deny Keanu a car? This dealership did, and now they're paying the price. Jake scrolled, his eyes wide. Someone had leaked the security footage, the entire exchange. Mark's arrogance, Keanu's quiet response, the laughter as he walked out, had been caught on camera. And now, millions of people were watching. Jake swallowed hard. This was going to be bad. The first sign of trouble came early in the morning. Mark Calloway's phone buzzed aggressively on his nightstand, jolting him awake. He groggily grabbed it, squinting at the screen. Over 100 missed notifications. Confused, he unlocked his phone, and immediately his stomach dropped. Luxury car dealership refuses to sell to Keanu Reeves. Instantly regrets it. Keanu Reeves humiliated at exclusive dealership. The internet erupts. Arrogant dealership owner mocks Keanu Reeves. Watch what happens next. Mark sat up so fast his coffee cup nearly toppled off the nightstand. He tapped on one of the links and his own voice blasted from the screen. Look, we cater to a very elite group of clients. This isn't a place for window shoppers. Then, the laughter. The smug smiles. The moment Keanu quietly walked away. The video was everywhere. Someone, probably one of the junior employees, had uploaded the security footage as a joke, never realizing it would backfire this badly. Mark's face turned red. Who the hell leaked this? His phone buzzed again. An urgent message from Ethan. Ethan, boss, we have a big problem. Call me ASAP. By the time Mark arrived at the dealership, the entire staff was already in panic mode. Jake was at the reception desk, reading through the online comments, his face pale. Ethan paced near the showroom floor, frantically typing on his phone. This is a disaster, Mark. Have you seen Twitter, Facebook? Every news outlet is talking about it. Mark clenched his jaw and stormed toward Jake. Show me. Jake hesitated, but then turned the monitor toward him. Thousands of comments flooded the dealership's social media pages. Imagine treating Keanu Reeves like he's beneath you. Biggest mistake of your life. I wouldn't buy a bike from this dealership, let alone a luxury car. Keanu didn't even get mad, and that makes you guys look so much worse. Hope you enjoy going out of business. You earned it. Mark's blood pressure skyrocketed. This is just social media outrage. It'll blow over. Jake shook his head. It's not just online, sir. He pointed at the dealership's Google reviews page. Mark leaned in, and his stomach turned ice cold. Their rating had plummeted from 4.9 stars to 1.2. Thousands of people had flooded the page overnight, leaving scathing reviews. If you're not a billionaire in a designer suit, don't even bother stepping inside. They, judged Keanu Reeves, imagine how they'd treat you. Worst dealership in history. Do not buy from them. Ethan grabbed Mark's shoulder. It's not just reviews. We've lost 4 major clients already. They saw the video and pulled out of their deals. And that's not even the worst part. Mark's heart pounded. Then what the hell is? Ethan opened Twitter and handed Mark his phone. There on the screen was a tweet from Aston Martin's official account. Aston Martin USA. We believe in treating all our customers with respect. If Keanu Reeves is still interested in an Aston Martin, we'd love to welcome him at any of our dealerships where he'll be treated like the legend he is. Keanu deserves better. Mark's blood ran cold. Other luxury brands had started piling on, trying to distance themselves from his dealership. Lamborghini, Ferrari, even Bugatti, all publicly offering Keanu a personal invitation to their showrooms. Mark gritted his teeth. His reputation was in flames, and the worst part? Keanu Reeves hadn't even said a single word. Yet somehow he had already won. Mark Calloway barely slept. He had spent the entire night trying to control the damage, but it was like trying to put out a wildfire with a bucket of water. Every refresh on social media brought another wave of angry comments, bad reviews, and humiliating headlines. When his alarm blared at 6 a.m., he groggily reached for his phone, only to find hundreds of missed calls and messages. His stomach twisted. Something had gotten worse. By the time Mark arrived at Calloway Luxury Motors, the situation was a full-scale disaster. The phones never stopped ringing. "Yes, sir, I understand," one receptionist said into her headset, her voice shaky. "No, we don't discriminate against customers." Another employee slammed the phone down in frustration. "That's the 10th caller threatening to sue us for unethical business practices." Mark stormed into the showroom, expecting to see the usual display of elegance and exclusivity. Instead, he found panic. Ethan was sweating, his tie loosened, yelling at someone over the phone. A couple of salesmen stood huddled near the office, looking at their phones, their expressions pale. Jake, the young employee, sat at his desk, scrolling through social media. His eyes flicked up to Mark, his face unreadable. Mark strode over to Ethan. "What the hell is happening?" Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his voice tight with stress. "We lost 4 more major clients overnight. People are canceling orders left and right. They don't want their names associated with a company that insulted Keanu Reeves." Mark's head pounded. "We'll fix it," he said through gritted teeth. "We just need to—" Ethan shoved his phone into Mark's hands. "Read this," he snapped. Mark looked at the screen. It was a statement from Lamborghini. Lamborghini USA. "We believe luxury is for those who appreciate craftsmanship, regardless of their appearance. Disrespect has no place in our industry. At Keanu Reeves, we'd be honored to have you visit any of our showrooms anytime." Mark's hands clenched into fists. It wasn't just Lamborghini. Ferrari, Bugatti, even Rolls-Royce had put out similar statements. They were all turning against him. Jake, still at his desk, exhaled sharply. "You should see the Google reviews now." Mark hesitated. He didn't want to look, but he had to. He grabbed a tablet and scrolled. The dealership's Google rating had dropped to 1.1 stars. Thousands of angry reviews. "If Keanu Reeves isn't good enough for this dealership, neither am I. The most arrogant business I've ever seen. Go out of business already. Hope you enjoy selling UA's Toyotas, because no luxury brand is touching you now. I'd rather set my money on fire than buy a car here." Mark's stomach twisted. "Sir?" Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's not just bad press anymore." Mark turned to him, dreading what he was about to hear. "We just got word that Aston Martin and McLaren have officially cut ties with us. They don't want their cars in our showroom anymore." The words hit like a brick. Calloway Luxury Motors had built its entire reputation on being an exclusive dealership for elite brands, and now they were being shut out. Panic clawed at Mark's chest. "We'll fix this. We'll make a statement, apologize, do an interview." Jake let out a humorless laugh. "Apologize now?" He shook his head. "People don't believe apologies when they're only made after you've lost everything." Mark froze. He stared at the chaos around him. Phones ringing, employees whispering, clients leaving. This wasn't just a bad week. This was the beginning of the end. And it had all started because they had judged the wrong person. While the internet exploded with outrage, Keanu Reeves remained completely silent. No statements, no angry tweets, no lawsuits. Just silence, until a reporter finally caught up with him. Keanu had just stepped out of a quiet cafe in Los Angeles, coffee in hand, when a journalist from TMZ approached cautiously. "Mr. Reeves, sorry to bother you," she said, microphone extended. But the world is talking about the incident at Calloway Luxury Motors. Do you have anything to say about what happened? Keanu paused, considering the question. For a brief moment, the internet held its breath. Then, in his usual calm, humble manner, he simply shrugged. "It's okay," he said, his voice light and sincere. "I just wanted to buy a car." That was it. No bitterness, no anger, no ego. Just a simple, honest response. And somehow, that made it even worse for Calloway Luxury Motors. The next day, without any fanfare, Keanu walked into a competing luxury dealership across town. Stanton Elite Autos. This time, there were no sneers, no condescending glances, no arrogance. Instead, the staff recognized him immediately, not just as a celebrity, but as a customer deserving of respect. "Mr. Reeves," the manager greeted warmly, shaking his hand. "It's an honor to have you here. How can we help?" Keanu smiled. "I'd love to see your Aston Martins." Within minutes, the staff led him to the same model he had admired at Calloway, a sleek black Aston Martin Valkyrie. No hesitation, no questions about his status or net worth. "She's yours," the manager said. "Let's get the paperwork started." Keanu nodded, pulling out his personal checkbook. No agents, no assistants, just Keanu Reeves, quietly buying the car he had wanted all along. After purchasing the car, Keanu posted a simple thank you message on Instagram. "Appreciate the kind folks at Stanton Elite Autos for an easy, hassle-free experience. Great team, great cars. Excited to take this one for a spin." Within minutes, the post went viral. People flooded Stanton Elite Autos' social media pages, praising them for treating Keanu with respect. The dealership's followers skyrocketed. Customers started calling in, asking about their luxury inventory. Even celebrities chimed in, applauding Stanton Elite for their professionalism. Meanwhile, across town, at Calloway Luxury Motors, Mark Calloway watched in horrified silence as his rival dealership thrived, thanks to the very man he had turned away. His own business was now a sinking ship. Clients were still canceling orders. Luxury brands had blacklisted him. His staff was quitting, fearing for their reputations. And worst of all, his own name had become a permanent joke. Ake, the young employee, approached Mark one last time before handing in his resignation. "You know," he said, shaking his head, "Keanu never had to say a single bad thing about us." Mark didn't respond. "His kindness destroyed you more than his anger ever could." With that, Jake walked out, and for the first time Mark Calloway realized he had no one to blame but himself. The fallout from the Keanu Reeves scandal hit Calloway Luxury Motors like an avalanche. Within days, the dealership's once pristine reputation was completely destroyed. Major luxury car brands severed all ties, ensuring that Calloway Motors would never sell their vehicles again. High-profile clients canceled orders, demanding refunds, furious at being associated with such an arrogant company. Google reviews remained at a devastating 1-star rating, with thousands of people still flooding in to leave scathing comments. Local news stations camped outside the dealership, eager to capture the downfall of what was once one of the city's most elite businesses. But the final blow came when the lawsuits started rolling in. Several furious clients, many of them wealthy, powerful investors, filed complaints citing unethical business practices and discriminatory treatment of customers. Mark Calloway sat in his office, staring at the massive stack of termination notices from investors who had once begged to work with him. His phone never stopped ringing, but it was never good news. His lawyer warned him that multiple lawsuits could drain his remaining finances. His accountant informed him that with so many canceled orders and severed partnerships, the dealership was no longer financially sustainable. And then came the final crushing moment. His bank called. They were pulling their funding. Mark was now on his own. 1 week after mocking Keanu Reeves, Mark Calloway did something he never imagined possible. He closed the doors of Calloway Luxury Motors for good. The glass windows, once showcasing the world's most expensive cars, were now covered with "going out of business" signs. Employees who had once laughed alongside Mark now scrambled to find new jobs, many of them realizing too late that they had been part of a sinking ship. And Mark himself? He sat alone in his now empty showroom, staring at the polished marble floors that once symbolized his success. Now, they only reflected his failure. As for Jake, the young employee who had seen it all coming, he had already made his move. The day before Calloway shut down, he handed in his resignation letter and walked out without looking back. 1 week later, he walked into Stanton Elite Autos, the dealership that had welcomed Keanu Reeves with respect. "You're the guy from Calloway, right?" the manager asked, raising an eyebrow. Jake nodded. "Yeah, and I know exactly what not to do in this business." The manager smiled. "Good answer. Welcome to the team." The story of Calloway Luxury Motors' downfall became a widely known cautionary tale. People shared the video as a reminder of how arrogance can destroy even the most powerful businesses. Keanu Reeves, of course, never spoke badly about the dealership. He didn't have to. His silence, his grace, and his humility spoke louder than any statement ever could. And in the end, the world was left with one unforgettable lesson. True success isn't about wealth or exclusivity. It's about character.